5 jurors have already been seated out of 18 in the Lindsay Clancy trial. Now, they say it's going to last about 4 to 6 weeks. So I have a timeline just with information from Parker, her husband's lawsuit, and Lindsay's lawsuit herself, of the incidences basically from the time that her first daughter was born in 2017 all the way up to the incident. And it's going to paint a better picture of how much help she was seeking and the specifics of what she actually did. All the way back in December of 2017 is when her first daughter, Cora, was born. September 30th, 2019 was when Dawson was born. According to Lindsay's lawsuit, following the birth of her second child, she was elated and had increased energy. Parker described that she had manic behavior for multiple days. In October 2020, she had an episode of decluttering and simplifying her life, obsessively cleaning and discarding items. She said that she felt amazing and on top of things. Her thoughts raced and she consistently felt pressure to be active. It then states 2 months post-birth, she developed anxiety and was offered Zoloft by a psychiatrist, but she declined it due to concerns about breastfeeding. Jumping ahead to May of 2022 is when Callan, their last child, was born. Parker's lawsuit said that she repeatedly told Parker how happy she was and how much she loved their new baby, and she just was full of energy. In July of 2022, it marked 4 weeks postpartum, and in Parker's lawsuit, he said that he saw that she had no symptoms at this time. But Lindsay, however, alleged that she was actually hypomanic during the period. Remaining of the summer of 2022, looks like the couple ran a 5K. In mid-August, Parker returns to work. He returned 12 weeks after Callan was born. So in August, the symptoms went from hypomania to anxiety and depression. She had debilitating anxiety, insomnia, and slept 3 hours a night. No motivation, could not exercise. Then in September, they run another 5K, even though Lindsay says that she was too depressed to exercise at this point. By mid-September, she meets with a psychiatrist online, and she is diagnosed with chronic GAD and depressed moods, prescribed Zoloft, and she actually scored 23 on the postnatal depression scale, which is very severe. She then is supposed to go back to work at the end of September. But in October, the doctors were saying, okay, well, has she taken the medication? And she says that she was on the verge of taking the medication, but she wanted to try therapy first. Okay, now this is kind of when it starts really ramping up. So she's prescribed Zoloft, goes from 25 milligrams to 50, but then she says that she starts feeling awful and has insomnia, poor appetite, more depressed, crying all day, and she actually doesn't sleep for a total of 48 hours, has racing thoughts, and worsens anxiety. So the psychiatrist discontinues it and prescribes Ativan and Benadryl for her sleep. So at this point in late October, she has not returned to work still. November 8th, she makes a Facebook post in a group that is called I'm Not Alone, Postpartum Depression, Anxiety, and Rage. And she says that she was looking for advice and that she tried Zoloft for a week. And after that, she just felt like she was extremely depressed and it worsened. She had insomnia and that she was given Ativan, and that was the only medication that was working for her so far, and it was making her feel happy again. And then the lawsuit didn't mention who prescribed the Ativan, but later on you will see that Parker claims that she became quite addicted to it. Now in mid-November, the insomnia worsens. She was allegedly only sleeping 3 hours a night. November 16th, she went and checked herself into the ER for insomnia, and she reported insomnia, anxiety, and palpitations. She was given trazodone, but it was not effective even at 150 milligrams. Okay, but then Parker's mom is apparently a nurse as well, and she was connecting Lindsay to Nurse Paul, was telling her symptoms, and so this nurse prescribed her Prozac 10 milligrams, and after that, then she claimed that she was just feeling really disconnected, out of it, and spacey. Then Nurse Paul said, let's try some other stuff. After 4 days on Prozac, they discontinued it, and they had her on Ambien, Remeron, and Klonopin all at once. All right, so then November 26th, after she was taking Remeron, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, she experienced dissociation, perceiving the world around her as unreal, distorted, and distant. She could not determine what was real. She was forgetful, confused, and unable to drive or be alone. She also just tells the nurse, like, hey, I am petrified of becoming addicted to benzos. She feels like she's in a panic state. So then they switch her from Nurse Paul to another colleague, and that she is like, hey, I'm dependent on benzos for sleep. She's overwhelmed. Her mind is constantly running. So then this new nurse says that she is considering that Lindsay actually has bipolar and prescribes her Seroquel. Now, in Parker's lawsuit, that is when he reports that she was having SI after being prescribed Seroquel, and the date for that was November 30th. So in Parker's lawsuit, December 4th, she was so scared of the hallucinations that she called the S hotline, and she was told that there was no emergency because she had no specific plan to harm herself, and it's just unclear whether, like, what she actually said to them. So Lindsay calls the nurse again and denies SI, but reports feeling something terrible might happen. So they prescribe Valium, and it's not sure like what dose, but then Parker calls and says that he asks Lindsay to get off the medication and start from scratch to see what's going on. But then the nurse increases the Seroquel to 400 milligrams a day. So the typical daily dose for bipolar would be 400 to 800 milligrams. So then a couple days later, Parker calls the nurse and asks for an urgent call back. So they call back, and he says that she is experiencing panic and SI, and then the nurse just says to continue taking the medication. So December 13, in the lawsuit, it said that Lindsay remained deeply depressed that day, had no motivation, had thoughts of harming herself, and that she just said that she wanted this all to be over. December 15th, she called the nurse and said that they had a devastating week. It was the worst day for Lindsay. She had horrible thoughts all day, and she had auditory hallucinations all day, every day. She felt debilitated, not interested in anything, exhausted, and could not get out of bed. And then all of December, she had thoughts of harming herself, and she continued to seek help through that specific nurse and her therapist. Now, there was no date in the lawsuit about this incident, but Lindsay told Parker that she had thoughts of harming the kids. She also told her mother about these thoughts because she was in a psychosis state. She was paranoid that people could hear her thoughts and that she would be locked in a mental hospital and have her kids taken away. She then checks herself into the ER because of these thoughts and goes into a day hospital that's for postpartum depression. And she reports heart palpitations, severe depression, feelings of numbness, and that life is becoming a disaster. She also states that she cannot feel fear, and she's worried that she was beyond repair, which is so sad. So when she's discharged from that postpartum hospital, they think that it was a misdiagnosis and that she actually does have bipolar disorder, but says that she doesn't have the criteria to stay there. So then the next day she checks herself into the ER, where a different doctor prescribed her once again something different. When that didn't work, she went online again to her psychiatrist and was diagnosed with MDD. Now, in January, she did attend her daughter's birthday party and smiled but could not converse. She avoided talking and couldn't make sense of what others were saying. So in January, she sees the online psychiatrist again, where she is trying to be tapered off of the Valium and also is prescribed diazepam. Now, at this point, she's having audible hallucinations to hurt herself and her children. It's not clear if she actually said that to a medical provider, but on January 20th, she searches what is a psychopath, and then 2 days later, they go to a dinner at a friend's house with their two oldest, and the friends just said that she was fairly normal, but just quiet and on her phone. So then get this, the day before the incident, January 23rd, she talks to the online psychiatrist, says the same symptoms, and the doctor increases the medication that she is on to 20 milligrams, and she did not sleep the entire night. After hearing all that, you tell me if this comment sounds on point, because what do you mean that she was on all of those medications within a span of just a couple of months.